My name is Michael Collins, and this morning we are interviewing Miss Helen Kollas. It's the 18th of March, 2015. Helen is a longtime resident of Carlisle, Cumberland County, and also a docent at the Cumberland County Historical Society. Helen, could you introduce yourself? Tell us your date of birth, where you were born, and
Helen Charles Kollas, 9/28/37, or September 28/37. I was born in Carlisle, I believe, on a house, I think it's 246, I'd have to check it, Southwest Street. Then I was taken to what was then Carlisle Hospital. And I grew up here.
okay, can you tell us a little bit about growing up here, your childhood in the Greek community here in Carlisle?
We had a small Greek community in terms of kids. We were very friendly with the Kollas children, the Kollas, what is that called? Pool, who had the pool home near us. We had a Greek school that met Tuesdays and Thursdays with a teacher, Kyria Tsiriminkra. She was a very strict teacher, all ages, from very young through my brother and my sister Clara's age. We sat at one table, all of us, but there's where we interacted at least twice a week, all of us. So, but it was kind of fun. We were close because we also lived relatively close to each other. We weren't that far away. But we played games. I mean, we grew up like little kids in the neighborhood. We weren't secular. We didn't divorce ourselves from other kids, but we did have a big meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. We had to go to Greek school no matter what. So basically we all did the same things. We had little stage productions. Kyria Tsiriminkra made sure that we were either an angel or what, and we recited everything in Greek. The scripts were in Greek, and our parents, of course, were very proud. We had no Greek Orthodox church in Carlisle, and we didn't have a Greek Orthodox church in Harrisburg while I was growing up. So I kind of grew up in St. Paul Lutheran Church. I went to Sunday school there, and Louise Heck, who was our fourth grade teacher, took my sister and me to St. Paul. My mom wanted us to have some religious training. Then we did get a church in Harrisburg, but by then I was preteen. But that was basically, it. We'd clown around a lot, but we didn't do anything. We did mischievous things sometimes, but we didn't do, anything bad.
Right. You mentioned a brother and a sister. How many siblings are there?
I did have two sisters and one brother. I have one brother. Both of my sisters have died.
Okay. And what age did you fall in that?
Baby.
You're the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
Primary education. What school did you go to?
I remember I went to Franklin Elementary School, which is now the YMCA. Okay. That used to be my elementary school. Then the Lamberton building at that time housed junior and senior high school. So I went to Carlisle Junior High School and Carlisle Senior High School. From there, I went to Dickinson College. And once I graduated from Dickinson, I worked for the county for a year as a social worker with Child Welfare Services. And I was offered the job of director by Judge Sugar. And I did turn it down because I have to be honest, my boss was an older lady who was very strict, and she could only deal objectively, and I still had subjectivity within me, and I didn't want to lose that. I felt if you're in that, you might just lose that sort of sensitivity. So from there, I went to NYU graduate school. So I got my degree here at Dickinson in Psych and English, and at New York University sociology and anthropology were one department. So at that time, I got my master's in sociology and anthropology.
Oh, interesting. I guess your parents, Charles and Mary,
Yes.
your parents were very proud of you. with
Yeah, they
this
were. They were proud
accomplishment.
of all of us. Yeah.
I understand they were both immigrants from
They
Greece.
were from the same village in Greece. Neochorion, Naflaktias in Greece.
Did they know each other there in that village?
Well, Mama
or-
was 3 years old when Daddy came to the States. There
Oh,
was a
okay.
12-year difference. He knew it's a small village. I think a total of maybe 200 people at its peak.
Right.
But he knew the family.
Right.
I think he knew Mom as a little girl. But it was an arranged marriage. You know, once Daddy came here and kind of established himself in terms of being able to send money home to Greece to help the family there, because it was a very poor village. The whole country was pretty poor. And Mama came to the States at the age of 20. The quota system at that time, you could not leave, you could not emigrate to the United States if you were more than 20 years old. So Mom just made it. And Daddy was here waiting for her, and they were married. And I'm trying to remember where. In New York, I know that. So, and they settled initially in Salamanca, New York, where my
Right.
older sister and brother were born.
Now, your father is primarily known for starting the Hamilton Restaurant,
Yes.
which is an
Yes.
institution here in Carlisle. He had prior restaurant experience, didn't he, or
He
food
did.
experience?
He did. Now, I'll be very honest. I know he worked in Salamanca. I'm not sure at what restaurant. He moved to Gettysburg. Again, I'm not sure where, but somehow, my sister Kathy was born in Gettysburg. Somehow they migrated to Carlisle, and the owner of the Texas Lunch would bring in, he too was from the old village. So Charlie Myers and Charlie Kollas, but Charlie Myers a little later because he was younger than my dad, started basically at the Texas until Daddy bought the Hamilton.
It's my understanding the Texas Lunch got a lot of people started. in
He
this
did,
area.
and he was a very strict person too. I understand that from the daughter. Catherine Kostopoulos was the daughter of the man who owned the Texas
Right.
Lunch. And she knew her father was very strict. But they all worked long hours. I mean, they worked throughout the day.
In reading the book that Cumberland County Historical Society put out, we published on the Greek community, it's my understanding that North High Street was at one time called Greek Row because of the number of Greek restaurants and businesses that were along
West
there.
High.
West High
West
Street,
High,
right. The
yeah.
north side of West High Street,
Right.
yes ma'am.
Yeah, well, there was Daddy on the corner of Pitt. The Kollas is like right down the street where our shop is.
Right.
Basically, right next to the shop.
History on Hire, a gift
There
shop.
was the Palace across the street, which was owned by the Geekus family. And then to our right was Mr. Terrace who had the Sarah's Cleaners before Pete Sarah's had it. So, I mean, yeah, there were a little group of people, Greeks just here, and then down the block was the Texas Lunch. The Kostopoulos family was there. So, yeah, we kind of, then my uncle opened the St. Charles. It's some, over a period, I'm not sure exactly the timeline.
Right.
But yeah, we were our own little community, like right in that area.
Well, prior to your father and mother, I understood they were co-workers and co-business owners
Right.
of the Hamilton. The Sugar Bowl had been there, and I believe that was a Greek business also.
Yeah, well, I don't remember who owned. I used to know, but I
Right.
have forgotten a number of things, and I don't remember. Vivakis, I think. Vivakis, I think,
Okay.
had it. And as a matter of fact, Harry Vivakis had a bar on Hanover Street. I mean, all within the radius of
Pitt and
West
West
High.
High.
Yeah.
Now, your father and mother opened the Hamilton in 1938,
No, 1937.
37. And originally the menu was pretty much just a sandwich and breakfast. It was kind of light fare.
I vaguely remember, I do know at that time there were a lot of soldiers in Carlisle.
Right.
And the soldiers were housed at what was a Carlisle barracks, which is now the Carlisle War College.
Right.
And East College on Dickinson campus, that had been turned into a dormitory for the soldiers. Now, these were soldiers for World War II, and I was young, but they used to come in, and that's, they had light things. They didn't really want heavy dinners, and they were generally just the soldiers, not families, wives, and whatever. They're basically soldiers. We had Carlisle residents there also, but I just remember we had a lot of soldiers. And we didn't have booths in, we just had tables. I remember as a kid, I'd sneak under a table and sit there and listen to, I don't know what I heard, but it was fun.
The business, your mom and dad and the children later on operated this business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
365 days a year, as I told you, until we were able to persuade my dad to get a lock and key to lock the restaurant for Christmas, one day of the year. He reluctantly did so, so it was 24/7, 364 days of the year.
Wow. And
And I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to tell you, I do remember also going with my father on Thanksgivings and Christmas, every Thanksgiving, and sometimes other times, Dad would go to the orphanage. We had an orphanage in Carlisle.
right.
It was where the funeral home is on Hanover Street, I guess it's South Hanover. I cannot think of, isn't that terrible?
North Hanover?
No,
No.
South Hanover.
South Hanover.
I can see the
Where the
name.
bed and breakfast is now in the old funeral home?
Who?
There's a bed and breakfast in the old funeral home on South Hanover.
No.
No?
I can see it, but I'll remember it as we're speaking. But it
Okay.
was, Daddy would take food to those children, like it was evening, it was standard time.
Right.
And he would take whole meals for the children in these orphanages. Never say anything to anybody. I just remember because I'd go along, Daddy would go somewhere and I wanted to go with Daddy. I just remember that.
Now, working in the restaurant, it was a family enterprise, family business. I understand your mother originally, or your parents originally hired a baker, and then your mother watched him and figured out how to figure out,
No, we never had a baker. Mama knew how to do that, learned how to do that on her own.
She did.
If we ever hired a baker, I don't remember that.
No.
I used to bake pies, but little pies.
Little pies.
She would do all the big business and I'd just roll out. But Mama would bake 40 pies a day.
Was there an instance where something caught fire, the grill caught fire, and a lot of her work was burned up?
I don't
That you remember?
I don't remember that.
I also to understand that she not only baked pies and breads that were served in the restaurant, plus any number of different jobs. She also made the soap that was
She
used
did.
to
She
clean the
made,
pots and the pans.
I think it was lye soap. I remember because we weren't allowed to touch anything.
Right.
No, she made soap. She was a long order cook. She made everything in the restaurant from scratch. Always. She was there in the morning. I'm going to say 4 or 5 in the morning.
Right.
And then she'd leave around 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
Well, that pretty much tradition that still holds true today over there.
Yeah, but as I say, she just kept at it.
Yeah.
And she had the baker's oven.
Okay.
Maybe it was 40 pies a week. I don't remember. It was a lot of pies at one time. I know that.
Do you remember the different types of pies that she
Oh,
would make?
cherry was the one that really people would come in and buy whole cherry pies. Coconut cream, egg custard. Those were the top. And they were so good. She made all the others, the apple and what have you, but those 3 were top.
Now, One item that the Hamilton restaurant is renowned for to this day is the hotchie dog.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
And how did your dad come up with that?
I have no idea. Daddy just, first of all, the grill used to face High Street.
Right.
It didn't, okay. But somehow Daddy came up with this cheese. Maybe he investigated it on his own. I don't know.
Right.
With the cheese but he called it a hotchie dog. He said everyone should have one. And then it was born. Mama always made the chili. The chili was always homemade and fresh. That was Daddy's idea. I don't know how Dad came up with that, but he did.
Well, I know it continues to be a popular item that everybody
Yeah.
enjoys, myself included. I understand that hotchie dog means hot cheese dog.
Yeah.
That from the research I did when we did the display on the restaurant.
Yeah.
Now, you kids working in the restaurant,
Yes.
washing dishes, clearing tables, sweeping
We
up?
did that. And the other thing Daddy did, I remember when I was in 7th grade, my sister Kathy was in 8th grade. There
Right.
used to be a commercial college across the street from the restaurant. Daddy sent the two of us to the commercial college to learn to type. So we were two young little things in with all these older people. And we would see them typing away, and once we went there early, and we just started tapping away because we wanted to hear it. We looked around, we had an audience, the class had come, and they were just amused. But Dad, it was invaluable throughout the rest of the school years. But we typed a new menu every day. One of us typed, the other ran off the mimeograph. I mean, we had our own production company there. So Daddy was pretty smart, you know. He
Right.
used us for that, you know. It didn't have a whip. And then when we went off to school, we just typed our essays and whatever we needed. I mean, that was a really good thing. But no, Dad did that. And we waitressed also. When we were older, we
Right.
waitressed.
Now, excuse me, in working in the restaurant,
Yeah.
what age did you start? When
My little before I went to school, but just doing little things like Mama would say, okay, because we wanted to be helpful. Mama would say, you know, go wipe this off or something. Nothing, you know, big and nothing. I can't even remember. But when we were able, we would bus.
right.
We would take the dishes and the glasses, and that part I remember. But I don't remember like heavy duty anything.
So who was in the kitchen pretty much? Your mother?
Mama, yeah.
Do you remember some of the menu items that were served during that period of
Chicken
time?
croquettes, because we don't have them anymore. She had great chicken croquettes. Most of what we have today, but chicken tenders are new because that's now a trend
Right.
thing in most restaurants. I do remember the chicken croquettes. There were a lot of hot sandwiches at the time, hot turkey or hot chicken, things with gravy people loved.
Right.
And Mom made, as I say, everything. Everything that went out, Mama made.
So it was a popular lunch spot with
It was.
people along
It
West
was.
High and in the town.
And then, of course, Dickinson College
Sure.
kids would get, they would ask me, does your dad ever sleep? Because Daddy was in the restaurant all the time.
Right.
Yeah, he'd take a nap in the afternoon, but they were in class, so they didn't know that. But when they'd come back early in the morning, and
Right.
as a matter of fact, I think Tommy does this too. Daddy could tell when someone might need a meal, or you know, one of the kids, and he would just offer.
I've seen Tommy do that in
Yeah,
the restaurant.
and he learned, you know, from a great guy, my dad.
Yeah.
Daddy, yeah, they're good like that.
Speaking of your dad's generosity, it's my understanding when and your mother's, when your parents became financially able, they started sponsoring individuals and orphans from different villages in
They did.
Greece.
Mostly our village, from other places, but mostly our village. Now, Tommy he was 11 when he came, and we kind of grew up together. I always thought of him as a little brother because I'm a year and a half older than Tommy, so I
Right.
pull rank on him because we were taught to respect our elders.
Right.
Tommy came over. He was the head of the family. His father was killed in the Civil War there, and Tommy came, and he pretty much at a given time shadowed my father, and Daddy was really the only father that Tommy knew at that age and
Right.
growing up. So there was a closeness there, and I know Tommy loved my dad dearly.
So Tommy also worked in the restaurant.
Yeah,
like you
he
said,
did. Well, not at
shadowing your
11.
father?
I think he may have done more dishes. You know, we didn't, I'm sure there were child labor laws, but they didn't, affect us. So we didn't,
Right.
we were family and we just did, but I think Tommy might have been doing dishes or working back in, small areas when we were that age.
Right.
We weren't given this tremendous responsibility for the running of the restaurant. Daddy and Mom had that.
Now, with the sponsoring of the individuals, your parents pretty much guaranteed them employment.
I want you to know Carlisle, Pennsylvania had more dishwashers coming here because Daddy was sponsored many of the men from the village,
Right.
and he was asked by immigration, like what were they coming for because they had a job. It was
Right.
dishwasher or I forget what some of the other tasks were, but there were a lot of dishwashers.
A lot of dishwashers.
Until they learned the language, and then they
Right.
were, out in the restaurant doing whatever you see most of the guys do, like Ethan at the hot dogs, we had
Right.
a guy there.
Right.
Yeah,
And not only employment, but
housing,
your parents provided housing and apartments above.
right.
The
And they didn't
restaurant.
pay to live there. I mean, they lived there, many
Right.
of them. Daddy and Mom brought over in the vicinity of 80 people over the years, not all at
Right.
one time, over the years.
And the apartments, also your parents were very generous in sending money back to the
Yes.
village to help with different civic projects and,
Yes.
and so forth.
And they all started to do that too. They would send money to their wives. That was
Right.
the men. The women, I know Dad brought 3 young girls here. I remember them well. They were orphans.
Right.
And they lived with us for a while and they worked the restaurant until they went through school, married, and they were off on their
Off
own.
on
But
their own.
yeah. But that I remember, and Daddy brought them basically because they were orphans and they were going to live with us, and they did live with us. So it was Mary, Bessie, and I'm going to say Olga because her name's Aliki.
Right.
I guess Alice, we called her Aliki.
Right.
So I don't know, they're still around, I think.
It's my understanding, I've seen photos of your father at the front window with
Yes.
the Hachi Dog Grill. He was a large, imposing individual. He's a pretty rugged guy,
He was.
physically.
He had very wide shoulders.
Right.
I didn't realize it, but Dad, I sat in the Cumberland Theater at the time. He wanted
Right.
to see it was a religious film, and I was small. I sat down, and Daddy had me pinned in the seat with his shoulder. I mean, if I wanted to move, it wasn't going to happen. He was. And incidentally, there are pictures of Dad with hot dogs. Not today, but then lined up. He could line them up from there up to us, and never dropped one.
Never drop a one. I had heard a story about a fellow that your father knew that was running from the police. And he came in and asked your dad to hide him. Can you tell us that story?
As far as I can remember, because again, I was young, but Daddy hid him in the freezer in the basement, and then called the police to come and get him. That was There was another incident where someone pulled a knife on my dad. Dad used to cut ham up front. He had the hot dogs and the ham. And this person went behind the counter and had the knife at my dad's throat, and he wanted to rob.
Right.
And we had a relative named Harriet. She did clean up. She was in the restaurant at the time. She was little, but she jumped over the counter and onto the back of the man with the knife. She was going to kill him. I mean, but she got him off my father, and in the interim, someone called the police, and that guy was carted off. But, Dad would even tell my sister and me, if anyone comes in here and they want money, give them the register. Don't, he said, life is not worth that. Dad was always very protective of you as an individual.
Right.
Forget, whatever's gone can be replaced. You cannot be replaced.
Now, what is now a separate dining area and the lounge part of the restaurant was originally the Oasis Bar.
Yes.
And your father owned that also.
Yes, he did.
Now, I'm to understand that during World War II, it was a pretty tough, pretty rough and tumble.
It was pretty tough even after that.
Rough and tumble bar when it was frequented, by the soldiers from the medical training school. Now, the girls weren't allowed.
No, we weren't. No, we were not allowed to go there at all. And we didn't have the opening that we have right now at the end of the that was closed. There was a wall there.
Right.
And toward where the ham was and the hot dogs, there was a cut-out window, so that if anyone in the bar, any rowdy guy, wanted a sandwich or something to eat, it was made and it was delivered through this window. You didn't go, I mean, that was a world unto itself. So, yeah, that was pretty rough.
Did your father ever have to go over there and respond to problems?
Probably.
I would imagine.
But you didn't mess with my daddy. I mean, all he had to do was just go in there and grab someone by the scruff of the neck and say, enough.
And that was it.
That was it, yeah.
Now, I understand your mother in the restaurant had to deal with drunks that crossed over and came in the restaurant, and that
she heard some foul language too, which she told me about, and I couldn't believe. I said, "You're kidding me." She said, "Yeah." Oh my, because we would never use that kind of language around my mom. I said, "Wow."
Well, I had understood that there was a drunk that had taken a mustard jar and had thrown it in the restaurant. And your mother didn't take too kindly with that.
No, she wouldn't either. She probably handled him in her way. She, if you messed with her, and she was a good lady. She was never physical. But if you became physical, she wasn't going to lie down for it. She would defend if it's the restaurant. But herself. So no, that guy did not get away with that. I think he wanted to throw it through the glass, which would have shattered, because the restaurant at that time had all glass. It's sectioned off right now, the front window. That used to be all glass. And of course, if he broke any part, he would break the whole window. So Mom was very cognizant of that. That's very damaging. So no, she just got hold of the guy's arm as far as I can remember. That's all I remember then. And I'm sure the police came after. We had police come in a lot. They'd for a cup of coffee. Mostly coffee. On their, because they did walk a beat at one time.
Well, it's my understanding with this incident that when your mother and your sister Clara were leaving to go testify in court, your sister Clara was somewhat afraid of testifying. And your mother had made the comment, "Clara, remember, he is afraid of me. I'm not afraid of him." And that sounds like your mom, huh?
It is. That's just what Mama would say. And
Now, I know that Oasis ceased operation when Tommy, who you were mentioning earlier, who pretty much grew up, shadowing your father in the Hamilton. And he had met Angie at that point, I think, in Cleveland.
That too was matched. Isn't that what they're called? Oh,
Arranged.
Arranged. Thank you. I couldn't think of arranged. Mom and Dad had a little something to do with that. And Angie did live in Cleveland. And Tommy, she was 17 when they married. Well, Tommy came home from the Army, and he was there, and it was time for him to settle down. And my parents just happened to introduce them, and in a way, made introductions like that. You kind of knew, okay, that's going to be your husband, and that's going to be your wife. Hey.
Now the Oasis ceased operation when Tommy and Angie
Right.
bought it in 1975
Right.
from your dad and mother. Also, the 24/7 operation stopped.
Right.
With the restaurant opening now at 6 o'clock and closing around 9:30,
Right.
Monday through Saturday with
Right.
Sundays off. Being a patron of the Hamilton myself, and I see you frequently over there, and Tommy's all over the place still.
Yes, he is.
And Angie passed, what, year before last?
Actually, 3.5 years ago.
Really? Doesn't seem like that
I
long.
know it. I
It
know
does.
it.
I thought she was a very sweet woman.
Oh, she
I
was.
enjoyed
Well,
her.
she and I were like together all the time. When she became ill, I was her caregiver.
Okay.
So I was with her frequently 24/7. When she was in the hospital, I stayed in the
All right.
hospital. You know, but cancer has a way of coming back with a vengeance, and
Yes, it
that's
does.
basically what happened.
Now, after high school, you told us you went to Dickinson and then went to NYU to get your master's,
Yeah.
your graduate degree. You also mentioned doing social work. Now, what did you do following NYU? What type of work did you
When
go
I
into?
graduated at NYU, I was a group social worker for New York City Youth Corps.
Okay.
And at the time, I still wanted to teach because that was my primary interest. And with the Youth Corps, I was in a facility that we had drama classes or drama sessions, and there was one guy there teaching drama, and he taught in the New York City schools. And I said, are there any openings? You know, this was in the 60s, so
All right.
I said, were there any openings at his school? He said, oh, yeah, you know, so he took me to meet his principal in the South Bronx. Now, I didn't know, South Bronx meant nothing to me, you know, I didn't know.
Right.
So I wound up teaching in the South Bronx for 33.5 years.
You did?
Yeah,
And what did you teach? Anthropology
English.
or English?
Junior high school.
Oh, that's a tough
That's
tough crew there.
Yep, yep. I earned my stars there, I did.
Now, did you meet your future husband in the school
I did
system?
meet him. Not in school. He worked at Metropolitan Hospital with a drama group. He was in theater, and I worked as a volunteer, and we met there.
Okay.
And we married. We had one daughter, and I don't know, 13 or 14 years later, we divorced. He has since passed away. And I have a daughter who is a doctor. She's a major in the Air Force who just got her promotion to lieutenant colonel.
Wow.
I have 2 grandsons and 1 great-grandson who
Oh.
just turned 2. Cute as a bug's ear. Yeah.
Are you able to see them often?
I do see them a little bit more than I thought I would because Stephanie, my daughter, will come here and she'll bring the baby with her
Right.
or the boys. Or I will go there. I will fly out to. She lives in San Angelo,
Mhm.
Texas. They have a home in San Antonio as well, and one of the boys lives there. Stephanie will be going into something called RAM. I know what the AM stands for. It's Aeronautical Medicine. It has something to do with her being a flight surgeon. So she'll be going to Dayton this summer for 2 years.
Okay.
So we'll be even closer.
I guess so. And how old is she?
She just turned 45.
Well, it sounds like she's had a wonderful career and accomplished
She
a lot
has.
for 45. Now, you retired from teaching.
I did.
In what year?
I'm thinking, I think it's 1998.
98?
Yeah, and then I came back to Carlisle. But I used to come back and forth quite a bit. You know, when I could,
Right.
weekends, holidays.
Sure.
It's not a big trip, it's like 3.5 hours. But no, I retired here. I wanted to come back. New York is fast, it's exciting, but I always came here to just ground myself. It's too fast. You know, I'll go visit. I have an apartment there when I want, I'll go. But
Right.
and I have neighbors that Steph grew up with.
Right.
But I don't know. I've always liked Carlisle.
Now, in wrapping all this up, how would you define your life in the Greek community in Carlisle, New York City, as you reflect back on the total experience to this point today?
The total experience is one of overwhelming joy. Actually, even with death, there is sadness, but then you can reflect on all the great things you had. I would do it again. I don't regret anything really that I can think of. And as I say, Carlisle is just a very nice area. My parents are both buried here, and I expect to be buried here as well. But I wouldn't be able to think of another more pleasant childhood. I mean, we had a really nice childhood, all of us growing up. It was a different world then, too. I mean, I would do everything all over again, but I'm not sure if I would in our world today. We just lived in a different, really beautiful world. We thought we were, scamps at some. We did nothing really. Little mischievous things didn't hurt anybody. Right. But I just, as I say, I really, and in terms of the Greek community, I've always been involved. I've always been told I don't look Greek, whatever Greek looks like. But, I just found it to be a marvelous experience, and it's taught me to enjoy and celebrate life. While you have it, just live it.
Well, thank you, Helen. We've been talking to Miss Helen Kollas of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and it's been a real treat.
Thank you. It's been very nice. Thank you. Right. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Could I shake your hand?
Sure.